Kia ora, nama ki te whare. Welcome to the House. I'm Louis Collins. In this Parliament, there has been a palpable hostility between local and central government. Some councillors feel patronised and bullied by the government, while ministers feel councils have been irresponsible when left to their own devices. On Wednesday, the Governance and Administration Committee were joined by two officials from the Office of the Auditor General to discuss their audit of the Council's 10-year plans, which ideally provide accountability to the community they serve.
You'll note that in previous reports and in this one, we have recommended that the Department of Internal Affairs and the sector consider LTPs going forward, their suitability, fit for purpose, are they useful for communities and so on. They have become quite large and unwieldy, and how useful are they for communities?
If you think the long-term plans have become unwieldy, and possibly occasionally verbose, how do we work together to get the information that the Auditor General needs, that we need in Select Committee, and that will help councils? You know, what do you think a process would be to look for how the planning is done?
There's a consultation process as part of the LTP, so the council should be asking their communities, what do you want to see, you know, in these plans, what's useful to you, as part of that planning process. And the better the strategic long-term planning, actually the better the short-term decisions are made that fit into that. So looking for that kind of emphasis, yeah.
Wednesday's meeting comes at a poignant time, with local election voting opening in under a month. Perhaps the most universal issue across local government has been the increase in rates, with an average of 8.7% for 2025-26. But that's not the only figure going up. So is council debt. The Auditor General says that this has largely been caused by a trend of underinvestment.
How do we get this perfect storm of more debt and more rates?
Well, the more debt is largely because of that historical underinvestment. So we are seeing that peak now trying to catch up, and you would hope as that catch up is achieved, then things will level off and become more even, because it's not sustainable to continue.
But in each of the last three long-term plans, it doesn't, it gets further away and it increases. If you look at that curve, it's not starting to come down now for at least another 5 years. It was meant to be decreasing already.
Yeah, but if you're correcting for kind of 30, 40 years of underinvestment, you can't make it up in a short period. Yeah, but it's one assumption, it's part of it. Yeah, well, Henry talked about inflation and interest rates and so on. I think councils would say the LG CPI rates are higher, so it contribute to their own expenses higher than the general level of inflation and so on. So generally the debt we talk about is your long-term investment into assets and so on, but your rates are your operational costs, and that's where they've seen really, really strong increases in their expenses, so the rates rises have been needed to cover those.
With the backdrop of burst pipes, a row over cycle lanes, and accusations of vanity projects, perhaps nowhere has the tension between local and central government been more obvious than in Wellington City. Coincidentally, two of the MPs at Wednesday's Select Committee meeting have in the past presided over the capital as mayor. New Zealand First's Andy Foster and the Greens' Celia Wade-Brown. Now, despite being on opposite sides of the aisle, both MPs, perhaps due to their mutual bond of previously holding the keys to the city, were unified in their seemingly instinctive defence of local government.
You think the councils historically have underinvested? Where was the audit advice that they were underinvesting? Because that's your collectively, or the audit job. I don't remember, and I don't know whether my colleague remembers, ever being told that we weren't really spending enough on our underwater pipes and so on. Now, maybe there is somewhere that can be pointed out, but I don't recollect it. And I just think it's quite frustrating to be always told, particularly by certain candidates, that, oh, we should have been focused on this more, when there wasn't an audit report that said that.
Yeah, it is an issue we've raised in these reports for some years. But I think what you're saying is that they weren't raised to you at Wellington, at the council level.
That's right.
Yeah.
You should have been screaming it, whispering it.
Yeah, well, we will take that back and go and reflect on that. But certainly in what I sort of think our global reports, these reports we provide to Parliament, we have raised that issue for several years now, because it is a sector-wide challenge.
No, I'm not disagreeing it's a challenge, I'm just seeing where were the red flags raised.
This week, Local Government Minister Simon Watts said he'd be bringing a paper to Cabinet that proposes caps on rates. Both coalition parties, ACT and New Zealand First, aren't so keen on the idea, and neither is Local Government New Zealand. Whichever path Cabinet takes, the recently strained central-local government relationship will remain crucial, and it's up to both those in the beehive and the council hopefuls vying for your vote next month to prove that they can get along. I te whakarongo koe ki te whare. You've been listening to The House, a program made with funding from Parliament's Office of the Clerk. Mā te wā.